All right, so this is a continuation of earlier's live stream Q&A, and I'll just be answering web development, career questions, technology questions, coding questions, learn how to code, anything related to that topic. Hey, how's it going? Modoop? So if you haven't attended a live Q&A before, basically feel free to ask questions in the live chat and I'll answer them. Topics are usually coding related, web development, programming, sometimes career stuff. Also, let me know if you can hear me okay. Awesome. We're glad that you're here. I appreciate it. How's the course going so far? All right, so your question is how to be consistent. You've been on and off the course. And then the next question I'll answer in a second. So, how to be consistent in your learning while you're following any course. I mean, it comes down to discipline, but also is the thing that you're doing interesting? It's really difficult to have attention and focus on something that's not fun, right? Or not enjoyable. It doesn't have to be fun necessarily, but maybe challenging. I enjoy things that are challenging, even if they're not necessarily fun. So maybe that's something that could help. But the other thing is build personal projects. Like take what you've learned in a section, finish the section, and then do something that you enjoy. So turn it into a personal project. Even if it's something really simple, you can still put it on your portfolio. You don't have to. But when you put that personal touch to it, then it makes it more enjoyable. And if you're enjoying what you're doing and you're looking forward to doing it, then it's gonna be a lot easier to stay motivated and to come back the next day and the next day after that to continue learning. Also, one thing that really deters students is when they get stuck and they don't get help. So if you get stuck and you try everything that you possibly can to get past that point, but you can't, then make sure you take advantage of the Facebook group, the Udemy Q&A, and the Discord server and get help from the other students in the course or the teaching assistants. So this question is from Bhupendra. What things we should follow after web development course? So it's really up to you. It depends on if you want to be a front-end developer, back-end developer, full-stack developer, if you're even interested in continuing with web development, if you want to do mobile development, if you want to get into AI or gaming or, with programming, the possibilities are endless. So you have to decide what topic you want to study, and then you have to find the resources for that topic. And just a little plug here, my website for those of you that don't know, topratedtechcourses.com has a list of courses for all those different categories, and that'll help you find some of the better courses on Udemy so you don't have to go sifting through the ones that aren't as great. I go through there and I try to find everything that's 4.5 and above. I have one course on there that's a 4.4, and that's just because it's been around forever. I think Udemy even shows it as a 4.5, but I have access to their back end to see like what the actual rating is down to like the 100th place or whatever, and if you round down, it's 4.4, and that's how I do the ratings. So my ratings are a little more accurate than what Udemy shows on their front page for the course. I'm not going to be able to pronounce your name. Is it Mrinmoy? Ghosh? Anyway, how's it going? Welcome. And then Michael, how's it going? And Modut, no problem. Good luck with it, and let me know what you come up with. And for those of you that are just getting here, I'll be sticking around for a little bit. Feel free to ask any questions you want, and I'll be happy to answer them. In the meantime, I'm going to jump over to Discord and share the live stream. All right. Renmoy, please discuss about ethical hacking. So I think another term for ethical hacking is like white hat hacking. Usually what that involves is just kind of hacking for fun, not doing anything malicious, like putting viruses on people's computers or stealing their bank info or selling their information on the dark web, stuff like that. A lot of times with white hat hacking, what will happen is people will get into cybersecurity and they'll get a job for a company, or they'll work for one company that contracts out to other companies, and they'll find exploits in people's software and web applications just in their security. So they'll basically try to hack these websites, and then when they find those exploits, they'll tell, it's kind of like a ransom, but more of like a, hey, your website's not safe, and we can show you how to make it safe if you pay us. And of course, that company doesn't have to. They can hire somebody else if they want to. But these types of companies are just that. They're ethical companies. So it's not like they're like saying like, if you don't, pay us, then we're going to hack you. That's not what they're saying. They're just saying you have some exploitable features on your website, and we'd like to fix that for you for a fee. And so that is an area that you could get into for sure. It's not something I do much of, but it seems like it could be a pretty interesting and fun job, especially if you're into programming. So Michael's question is, what do you think about learning by projects? He took both my course, Code with Node, which by the way is free on Udemy if you're not taking it already. It's a follow-up course to Colt Steele's The Web Developer Bootcamp. And he's saying that project-based learning is the most effective. And yeah, I'm always pushing students to build projects with whatever they learn. And so if, that's the best way to learn, period. Like if you weren't taking a course and you wanted to go learn something like React or even Express.js, which is what Colt teaches, backend separate from React, but can be used together. But if you want to learn any one of these technologies, then in my opinion, the best way to do it is just go build a project. You got to start small. Always start abstract and small and then build on it. And you got to learn how to build things modular. So you start really small and you just use building blocks. You just keep putting things on top of each other until you have this more complex and robust program. But in doing so, you'll run into a lot of problems that you have to solve, and that's how you learn. That's how I learn every day, even when I'm tutoring people, which by the way, it's a good time to say that I offer tutoring. If you're interested in working with me one-on-one, let me know. But moving on, when I tutor people, I'm not just teaching them stuff that I already know. I'm teaching them, we'll be working on a project together, and I'm learning alongside them, but I have more tools at my disposal for being able to solve things that students, especially beginners, are unable to solve. And so to build that type of skill set, you have to build things. So projects are a great way to do that. And I think Colt's course takes a good approach with that. A lot of his competitors have similar approaches. You can check out the link I shared above, topratedtechcourses.com, to see some of his competition courses or competitors' courses. But then my Code with Node course, which is free, takes a similar approach where we just start small, build from the ground up, and run into problems while we're working on a single project. And it starts as a small project, and then it would just get bigger and bigger. And when you run into those problems, that's how you learn. So definitely recommend project-based learning. So next question is from Kazi. Is DOM manipulation something I should put time into learning? If you want to be a front-end web developer in any capacity, then you should absolutely learn DOM manipulation, because that's what front-end development is all about. So yes. Even if you're a back-end developer or a full-stack developer, for sure if you're a full-stack developer, but if you want to just be a back-end developer, it's still helpful to understand that stuff so you can communicate with the front-end team a little bit easier. So next question is a roadmap for white hat hacking. I would recommend, if you enjoy Udemy courses and that's your thing, then go to Udemy and check out some of their top-rated hacking courses. If you find one that you like, I'd love to hear about it, so let me know whichever one you pick. And then just be aware that, one, Udemy is always doing deals, sales and everything, and two, you can always return it within 30 days if you don't like the course. The other thing to do would just be to find a community of white hat hackers and ask them what technologies you should learn starting out, what operating system, what flavor of Linux, etc. I personally, like I said, I'm not that much into that kind of work, so I don't necessarily have a roadmap that I can just lay out for you. But if it were me, I would go look for a community of other people that are already in that space so that you can get some help in that regard. So this one is from Huang Long. Which course should I enroll after this course to dive into the back-end path? I would take my Code with Node course. It's strictly back-end, and it continues on with what you've learned in Colt's course. It just teaches you more advanced concepts. So that's probably a good place to start. A lot of the courses out today teach Node, especially the ones that are competing with Colt's course, and then they teach something like React. So I don't know how heavily they get into the Node stuff. I know there's a couple other Node courses, and I think they might be listed on my website, topratedtechcourses.com. So definitely be on the lookout there, and also on Udemy just for like Node-specific courses, and those will cover back-end stuff. And then just, of course, get the ones that have the better ratings. So HTA Dev. What is your opinion on HTML email developer as a way to break into the industry for a person that doesn't have experience or a degree, etc.? I've heard of students doing that. I don't think it's a very difficult job necessarily, because you're basically just working with HTML and maybe some CSS, but it is a way to get your, if you have no other way to get into the industry, it's a good job to have on your resume. It at least says like, hey, someone was willing to take a chance on me and hire me to do some stuff that's web related, and so it might be a good way to get into your next job, which could be an entry-level web development job. Kali, Linux, and Python. I'm thinking that's probably a comment in relation to the white hat stuff. Kali Linux is really popular for hacking, and then Python's really nice too. You can like build executable files and stuff like that. So how do you build on your front end skills? So depending on which course you're talking about, if you're talking about the Web Developer Bootcamp, the front end section of that course just covers like vanilla JavaScript and jQuery. So if your intent is to be a front end developer, you're definitely going to want to pick up a front end framework like Vue, React, or Angular. So I would definitely look into courses that teach that kind of thing. But you're also going to need to have at least a basic knowledge of how the back end works. So if you're still taking Colt's course and you've just finished the front end section, then I would continue on with the course until you're done with it. So Travis' question is a really common one. In order to land a job in 2020, which of the frameworks, the more popular ones, front-end frameworks that is, what I recommend between Vue, Angular, and React. And then you have jQuery in there, which is not a framework, it's a library. In fact, React is also a library, but I won't get into the details on that. It's considered a framework too, I suppose. But anyway, it's up to you. I would try each one and see which one you prefer, but also look at jobs that you're trying to get and see what they're using, because there's no point in learning React if the company that you're going to work for or try to work for is using Angular. Different areas lean more towards certain technologies. I think right now React is certainly in the lead. Vue is up and coming. It's got some really great features. It's like snappy and fast, and it has stuff that's similar to the original version of Angular, but I think they've come a long way since then with some cooler features as well. So it's really up to you, but I think really any which way you go with front-end frameworks, there's no losing. You could pick out of a hat, blindfolded any one of those three, and you'd be fine. If it were me, I'd probably go with React. It's just totally in demand pretty much everywhere. So in Colt's Yelp camp, we stopped using CDB. Is there a place on Udemy where there's a solution to using CDB with auth and stuff? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Are you trying to seed users, or you'd have to expand on that, Sydney. Jesse, virtually every major city and university CS departments host hackathons. That is a good place for white hat meetups. Yes. Sydney, my Node course is on my website. Yes, it's on devsprout.io. It's free there. It's also on Udemy under Code with Node, Learn by Doing. Free there also. So if you prefer Udemy, you can get it there as well. And then I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to continue hosting the DevSprout website, because everything on there is free, and I basically just use it to get emails, so I can market to people and try to get like tutoring customers, things like that. And it costs a lot of money, so I might just stick with Udemy for hosting my courses. I'm not sure, but anyway, for the time being, yes, it is available on devsprout.io. So Michael, your question I kind of just answered a moment ago. Which is the best to learn first and get hired? React versus Angular. React is super popular right now. I would say it's in the lead just from what I've seen. But like I said before, you could probably pick either from a hat and you'd be just fine. So you signed up for my full stack course, not advanced. I'm not sure which course you're talking about. You'd have to be more specific. But do I cover things that would set me up for making avatar sites with JavaScript animated avatars? Yeah, it depends on which course you're talking about. But oh, Colt's course. Yeah, he teaches JavaScript. So if you have a library that works with animated avatars and it requires you to know JavaScript, then his course will be helpful in that regard. So over time, when you're learning, you end up forgetting some very basic stuff like Bootstrap. Do you think that forgetting basic stuff is normal? Like I forget stuff too, and by the stuff I mean syntax. So it's easy to forget syntax, and so that's why you make things like snippets in your code editor. If you just make a bunch of snippets for something that you use all the time. That's helpful. But also just be able to look. Come here. Come here. It's my cat. He's probably going to keep meowing until I pet him. Sorry, lost my train of thought. But forgetting stuff, you can, if you're coding, then you're on your computer, so you're only a couple clicks or types away from looking stuff up. So if you forget something, just look it up in the documentation. The faster you get at, let me put it this way. When I'm building a website, if I'm using Bootstrap, I already have getbootstrap.com, the documentation, open in a tab, and I'm just going back and forth grabbing whatever snippets of code I need from the documentation, because I don't memorize all that stuff. I know exactly how it works. I know how you have to have a container. You can use container fluid. Then you have to have a row and a column. I know how the grid works. I know like the different elements, the components, but I don't remember all the exact syntax and the order of the syntax and the elements inside of them and stuff like that. So it's totally normal to forget that kind of stuff. You know, it's like riding a bike. You're not going to completely forget it, and as long as you know how to access it really quickly, just by going to the documentation, then you'll be fine. It's not going to help you in an interview if they want to see you do it from scratch, but I don't know too many interviews that are going to ask you to like write Bootstrap right in front of them from scratch. So probably not a big deal. How do I approach old code or programs that I'm returning to? So you're revisiting Colt's course that you took about a year ago. I would skim over it, and because I mean it's a pretty big time investment to take it from scratch, right? But like I said with the other comment, it's like riding a bike, so all that stuff is in the back of your head. So I would maybe build another project, maybe just rebuild Yelp Camp. If you try to rebuild something separate and then you run into syntax differences, that could be difficult. But if you rebuild Yelp Camp from memory, and then of course referencing anytime you get stuck, then whenever you get like really stuck, you can ask for help in the Q&A, and we'll be able to help you because you're working on a project that's from the course and we have similar syntax that we can compare it against. Vice versa, you could also compare that syntax from your project against Colt's source code using something like diffchecker.com just to do it automatically. So it just depends on the project. Like for me, I would run the code from a project just to get familiar with the functionality in the browser, and then I would go looking through the code to look at the project structure, and hopefully you have some good comments or documentation that you wrote, or maybe a README, something like that helps you get familiar with the code that you wrote. And then hopefully you were writing your code in such a way that's easy to read. If you wrote a bunch of cryptic, confusing code with bad variable names, then first off, you have a bigger problem. You need to address that. And moving forward, you need to write code that's easy to read, not just by yourself, but other developers that are coming back later or working with you and also working on that code base. So hopefully you've done that starting out, and then coming back later, it's fairly easy to just look at your code and say, okay, this is what's going on. So you're a student from Colt's course, but you're from outside the U.S. Is there any possibility to land internships in the U.S.? It just depends. I'm sure it's a combination of finding a company that offers that kind of thing, also having the financial backing to be able to move to a different place and live in that place, you know, find housing, stuff like that. And then honestly, I don't know a lot about how all that works. Like, you might be able to get the company to sponsor your visa, and I'm not sure if a work visa allows you to stay longer than just a regular travel visa, but you'd at least have 3 months to like kick around and try and work somewhere or be an intern somewhere. So there's definitely a possibility of it, but it's not something that I've done or I've experienced other people doing. So I'm not 100% sure on the steps you need to take. Like I've had students from the US who went to other places like South Africa and they got internships there, but not the other way around. So unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot more information, but is it possible? It's definitely possible. So Sydney, you want to see the database with campgrounds, users, and assign those users to campgrounds and comments created. Definitely possible. You would follow the same steps that you use with seeding the database already, like what Colt shows you how to do. I have a video here on my YouTube about async await, and it features the seeddb function, and it shows you how to put all that stuff in order. But yeah, basically just think of it as what comes first. Does the campground come first? Well, probably the user, right? Because the user needs to be made before a user makes a campground. And then does the comment come first? No, the comment comes after the campground. So you make the user, you make the campground, you assign the campground to the user, you make the comment, assign the comment to the campground and the user, and then you move on to the next one. Async await will be really helpful in writing something like that because you can use a for of loop to very quickly make all that stuff. And you would want to use something like Faker, the npm package, to get a bunch of fake usernames and generate a bunch of fake passwords and stuff like that. Am I planning to make new courses? Yeah, I guess eventually. People keep asking me to finish my code with Node course, so I made probably about, I don't know, 75% of it. And then once I got into the front end stuff, I kind of dropped the ball. And I used to charge for the course. People were paying for it as I was producing it, and I was making videos every week, like a couple times a week. And I just got super burned out, which I'm sure if you're in web development, you've probably experienced it yourself or you've heard of other people experiencing it. But it's a real thing, and it's really difficult. It's hard emotionally and physically. And so I made the decision to step away from that course. And I had been working on it for a really long time, close to 2 years. And it's just difficult to put that much effort and work into something and then have to walk away from it. So would I like to go back to it? Yes. I ended up making the decision to make the course free. For those of you that don't know what course I'm talking about, it's Code with Node, Learn by Doing. But I made the course free because I felt bad that the course was only 75% finished. I didn't want people to pay for it if it wasn't a complete course. And so will I finish that course? I don't know. I've toyed with the idea of doing live streams coding of the course, but again, that takes time and effort, and it's something that I wouldn't want to start unless I knew I was going to be able to finish it. So we'll see where that goes. I'm going to keep mulling it over and see if I can't come out with a plan for that. And yeah, if I decide to put out any more courses, then I'll definitely let everybody know. If you want, you can subscribe to my email list over on devsprout.io. It's at the very bottom, and I'll be sending out emails for any of those kinds of announcements. Okay. Would you recommend Python or PHP for web development? Just depends on what you are doing. Python's really great for like science-related stuff or math-related stuff, or you can just use it to make any kind of web app. I mean, Django is really powerful as a framework, or if you want to go more lightweight, you can go with Flask. And the equivalent to that with like Ruby would be Ruby on Rails to Django, or Sinatra to Flask. And the equivalent to that with Node would be Sales.js to Django, or Express.js to Flask. I mean, it's really just whichever. And then PHP similarly has a big framework, several big frameworks, but Laravel is a popular one, and I've used it. It's really nice. It's kind of like Ruby on Rails. It's kind of like Django. It's kind of like Sales. I don't know what the name of the one is that's lightweight for PHP, but the point I'm trying to make is it doesn't really matter. Just pick one out of a hat. If you're trying to learn one for a job, just figure out what companies that you have your eye on, what they're using, and then learn whatever they're using and whatever they expect you to know. If you're just doing it for fun, maybe try them both and see which one you prefer. I think you'll like Python's syntax more than PHP. It's a little more popular these days, but PHP's been around for a long time, and it's tried and true. People have been using it forever, and they're still going to continue to use it for a little while longer. Who knows how much longer? But 6 one way, half a dozen the other. If it were me, I'd learn Python, but I know both. So please make a course for Python programming, both on Django and AI. I'm not going to do that. Sorry. There are courses out there that already cover that kind of thing. So Jesse's got some information here about exchange programs that are fully funded, which I think that would be really helpful for the question we were talking about earlier with the internships. Okay. Do you recommend the Web Dev Bootcamp? Just to go back and address the Python Programming Advanced course. So the reason I said no is because there's already, I mean, you name a topic and it's already covered, and it's already covered by someone that's really good at teaching that stuff. Whether it's React, there's 1,000 React courses out there, or it's something like Python or Django. Not all of them go super advanced, but the thing about these courses is they take you to a certain point, and that might be the cusp of that instructor's knowledge, or at least as far as they're comfortable going trying to teach people. You don't see a lot of advanced courses because once you get to that point, it's really up to you to start reading documentation and building your own projects and getting into the more advanced topics. Once you have a solid foundation, you should be able to do all the rest of that stuff on your own. So I'm not saying advanced courses aren't out there, but they're few and far between just because it's easier to teach the beginner stuff, and then once you know the beginner and even the intermediate fundamentals, then you should be able to move on to the advanced stuff on your own. Do I still recommend the Web Dev Bootcamp since it's a little bit older? Will it help me with JS basics? What are your thoughts? Yes, I mean, there's a couple things that it's lacking in, like it's not going to teach you all the semantic HTML5 tags if that's something that worries you. That's stuff that you can learn in like an hour or two. It's not going to teach you CSS3, all the properties, but again, these are things that you add on to what you learn in Colt's course. So although I wouldn't say Colt's course is completely outdated, although it just teaches ES5 instead of the newer versions of ECMAScript, he teaches a good foundation. And so you can learn the foundation, you can learn like what programming is, how it works behind the scenes, and even how to build some really cool stuff with it. And then you can go on to find other resources to learn ES6 all the way through ESNext, CSS3, HTML5, and then sky's the limit. You can go learn React, whatever you want. But I still would argue that Colt's course is a really great foundation. Just know that some of the ways that things are written, some of the things that you're learning may not be as popular or may not be used at all in some modern instances. But you can still build on that foundation and learn those newer modalities and technologies on your own. So I think it's a great place to start. All right, so Ozone Gamer Station graduated with a Bachelor's of Science, I think that is, in CS a year ago. And you didn't do interning work because you're always busy with classes. You're looking for Java entry-level jobs with no luck. I would keep looking for a job. I don't know how many you've applied for already, but I always tell students the only people I see that don't get jobs in programming or web development are the people that stop looking. And I understand it's discouraging. If you've been looking for a long time, you might want to change something about how you're looking, whether type of role, type of company, which technologies, etc. But definitely don't quit. Stick with it. Go to meetups locally. Look for remote work if that's an option for you. Look for work in places that you would have to move to, because some of those companies will help you move if you feel like you want to move out of your current location. And definitely just stick with it. Have somebody look at your resume, make sure that you've got the right stuff on there. And then in these interviews, hopefully you're getting interviews, even if you're not getting the job. Learn from those interviews so that you know what you're doing wrong, what you need to improve on, and hopefully that'll help you focus in on that one job that ultimately will be the answer. So good luck with that. Definitely don't get discouraged. Keep at it. Some people take years to find their job. And hopefully you have the current work that you're doing to keep you on your feet in the meantime. Does the Web Developer Bootcamp cover what you asked about earlier? I'm not sure what you asked about earlier, so let me look it up. Yes, JavaScript. It doesn't cover animated avatars, but it covers JavaScript. And so if you have a library or something to do with JavaScript that you need to know JavaScript first, then the web development course is going to be what you're going to, one of the options for learning that. Appreciate the love from India. Thank you, Michael. Have a good night. Appreciate it. Hello. It looks like your name is, and excuse me if I'm getting this wrong, but it looks like it's in Korean, so I'm not sure what your name is, but hello. And then Nelson, thanks for answering. No problem. How is switching from Mongoose to Firebase after watching Colt video? I haven't used Firebase in many years, but it's a object type of storage system, so it's similar in many ways. Ferris Moss, no problem. Good luck with that. Yeah, if you have further questions about it, maybe you could share some examples of what you're talking about so I could tell you. But I'm almost certain that if the avatar thing you're trying to do is JavaScript based, then learning JavaScript from Colt's non-advanced web development course, the Web Developer Bootcamp, will be a good place for you to start. And I have an itch on my nose. It's driving me crazy. Sorry. Okay. So yeah, Mongoose to Firebase. Again, haven't used Firebase in forever, but it shouldn't be difficult for you to switch over. It's not like going from a relational database like MySQL or PostgreSQL and then jumping over into MongoDB. So you're basically just dealing with key value pairs on an object. So thank you for answering my question earlier. Speaking of a new version of all those technologies, encountering deprecated code programs can be scary for some people, especially when updating code. Any tips or thoughts on it? So yeah, when something's deprecated, you definitely want to look for an alternative if it's something you're going to be using in a production website. But if it's just for learning purposes, then you don't necessarily have to worry about it. And usually if something's deprecated, it just means that it was open source and the developers that were dealing with it are no longer supporting it, keeping up with the code base. There may be an opportunity for someone like you to step in and take over if you're at that skill level, but you may not want to. And there may be a better version out there, and that may also be a contributing reason to why they're deprecated now. Or sometimes they just want to use newer syntax, and so the older version they don't want to be backwards compatible or support it, and so they'll have a newer version that you can use. But in terms of it being scary when things are updated and trying to update your code, you gotta get used to that because web development, programming, everything's changing. It's not a mile a minute, but it's fast, and you know what's new today may not be new tomorrow, relatively speaking, and so it's just something that you have to embrace because it's going to happen for the rest of your career. I know some advanced developers, they'll tell you, you know, I started 10, 20 years ago, whatever it may be, and they don't use any of the technologies they used to use. But in that regard, one thing that you can do to like kind of future-proof yourself and embrace those things is learn the underlying concepts, the things that never go away, the computer science concepts, and that'll help you be a better programmer overall. And then you won't be so worried about the latest and greatest, you know, the newest version of React or whatever it is. But ideally, you'll be using technologies like React, for example, where if they come out with a newer version, it's because it has stuff that makes your life easier. It's not more difficult to learn. It might be different and a little scary at first, but ultimately, it'll make it easier for you to develop the applications that you're trying to make. Because remember, at the end of the day, these are all just tools. They're just tools that help you reach an end goal. And so don't get biased, you know, React's better than Angular or whatever. Just use the right tool for the job. So you're looking for an alternative to like Flash animated avatars, and you want to use JavaScript. I think JavaScript's probably your best bet. Maybe some CSS library, make things look nice. And then don't forget CSS has animations too. So you may be able to find something that allows you to animate your avatars with CSS. So if I'm looking to create projects by refactoring some sites I see online that may need some sprucing up, and they're using shopping carts or whatnot, would using Stripe be something to go to? Since Colt class didn't really cover shopping and securing databases and stuff, I'm assuming I do need these types of knowledge. And Praxer von Stein, hello, how's it going? So Sydney, shopping carts. Yeah, no one ever talks about them because they're difficult to set up. But the underlying concept that you need to understand with a shopping cart is a queue. It's a data structure. And with a queue, just think about a queue of people. Okay, this is the place where they're going. All right, first person that gets there is going to be the first person to go into the place, and then everybody else is in the queue, right? And so the first person in is going to be the first person out, and then last person in, if you were to, if they were to leave, last person in would be the first person out. Really difficult trying to describe it with fingers, but the point I'm trying to make is a queue will help you because if you think about it in terms of a shopping cart, let's say you have one product that has one quantity left, right? And like let's say that you're selling slime and you only have one purple slime left. And so two people are on the website and they both try to go and get that slime at the same time. It's important that you have a queue because it might be in both of their shopping carts at the same time, but until they check out and they have a successful payment and you say, I've got your money, now I'm going to take that thing out of the inventory, the slime. Until that happens, you can't take it out of the store. You could, depending on how you structure your app, but most people, what they'll do is they'll say, okay, this item's in this person's cart, they were the first person in the queue, and so handle that first. And so the other person may somehow be able to get that item in their cart also because it's not out of the inventory yet. This person hasn't checked out yet. And of course, if they abandon their cart, then you're screwed because now there's just this item that if you were to take it out of inventory then it's just floating around in this cart that someone abandoned and now you can't sell that item. And so you don't want that to happen. You want to be able to put it in both of their carts and then whoever gets to the finish line first is the first person that gets it. So you use this queue, you handle these things in order. So this person puts it in first, this person puts it in second, you handle his first. If he goes through the checkout, whoever finishes the checkout first, it's like a race. And then the other person, if they get to the checkout, you do a quick check before they're done checking out, and you tell them, uh-oh, someone else purchased it. Sorry, you weren't fast enough. There's things that can help mitigate that. You want to look online. You want to look at how other people are doing it to see what patterns they're following. But that paradigm of using a queue is really helpful. That kind of, back when I was first learning how to do that stuff, it didn't really make sense to me. I was like, how do I solve this problem? You know, what happens if multiple people are on the site and they're trying to get these products at the same time? In any event, your question about Stripe is a good one. I would use Stripe. That's what I use for all my customers. You could also use PayPal. Stripe has better documentation in my opinion. I don't know if PayPal's documentation has gotten any better, but implementing Stripe is very easy to do, and most clients are happy with their fee structure and everything like that. So there are tutorials out there for creating shopping carts if you're using Node.js. Some of them are free, some of them are paid. So just be on the lookout for those. Some of them involve React, but others don't. And they'll cover stuff like how to use a queue and all that. Yep, no problem. Okay, so seeing a little bit about CSS animation. Hadn't known that was a thing before, though I've used CSS quite a bit. Yeah, CSS animation, it's going to be faster than JavaScript in most cases. So it's definitely worth looking into. But animating an avatar might be a little more difficult with CSS. But just Google it, see if other people are doing it, then maybe you can copy them. And we have 5 minutes, 6 minutes until 10 o'clock Central Time where I am, and my fire went out. So I'm going to call it a night. I'll answer like 1 or 2 more questions if anybody has any. Otherwise, thanks to everyone that showed up. Appreciate it. And if you want to support me, check out the courses that I recommend from Udemy, from topratedtechcourses.com. And then if you want to donate, so I'll keep doing stuff like this, check out paypal.me/devsprout. Pretty sure that is my PayPal me. Let me double check, see if I can give somebody else money. Yep, it's got my picture on it. So yeah, if you want to send me $1 or something, that'd be cool. But plan on doing more of these live streams, and yeah, really glad you were able to catch it too. That's great. Thanks for showing up. Appreciate the questions. And Tree, sige from the Philippines. Very cool. Thanks for showing up. I appreciate it. I figured if I did them late at night like this, I'd get some people from the other side of the world, so that's cool. Sydney, thank you. I appreciate it. And everyone else that's still in here, I appreciate you as well. Also, if anyone's interested in one-on-one tutoring, give me a shout. Send me $1 on PayPal, then I'll have your email, and I can email you back. Or you can just contact me on Discord, or YouTube, or Udemy, or any of the other places, Facebook, etc. What are some daily practices I used when learning to code back in the day? So I really just, I'm gonna be honest, I'm a pretty lazy developer. I think it's a good trait to have as a developer because you're always looking for shortcuts, and maybe that's why I like coding so much, because it's about like finding the shortest way to do things or using code to make your life easier. For example, once I got into automation, I just like fell in love with it because I had all these tasks that things that I would have to do on my computer that I'd have to do the same thing over and over again. And then I figured out how to automate them. And I spent, I was really excited and driven to figure out how to write the code. And then writing the code to get whatever it was automated. Once it was automated, I didn't have to worry about it anymore. And boom, I was saving time and I could continue being lazy. So daily practices, I wasn't like, going to code wars every day. While I have done code wars and I find them fun to do, they're also pretty time consuming. So my thing is like learn on an as needed basis. So building projects is the way that I learn. And typically I try to do it for a client, so I'm getting paid. So a lot of the stuff that I do, I'm like, someone says, hey, do you know how to do this? And even if I don't know how to do it, I'm like, yeah, I know how to do it. Or I'll figure it out or whatever. And then I'll take the job. I'll be getting paid to learn how to do whatever it is. And then I'll just Google like crazy, ask for help from other developers who know that stuff. And that's usually how I learn stuff. Just fake it till I make it. All right, we got a couple more questions. I will try to answer them real quick. And then I got to get out of here. So, struggling with JavaScript in terms of application, incorporating all the different parts together, what can you do? How do you integrate arrays with functions, etc., etc.? I mean, it kind of goes back to what I was just talking about. Like, I would build a project and try to incorporate those things into your project. But it depends on what, like, when you say application, are you talking about a front-end application? Are you talking about a Node.js application using the Express.js framework? Like, where are you in your learning? Because it's kind of hard to give you advice when I'm not entirely sure like what your goals are and where you're at currently. So how important would you say a good website visual design is? Should I take my chances and try to figure it out myself or hire someone? There's so many professionally made themes out there. You can just go pay anywhere between 10 and, I mean, it goes, sky's the limit with themes. You could pay $10, $50, $1,000, whatever. But you can get pre-made themes And yeah, you don't have to worry about paying somebody to do it for you. As long as you know some CSS and some HTML, and then you can just plug that into your website and you're good to go. So share a Udemy link of a Python course. I don't know of any advanced courses. I don't know how advanced Colt's course goes because I haven't taken it, but it is rated pretty good. So if you're wanting to learn Python, you might want to check it out. And you can do that by checking out the top rated tech courses. .com, and then just go find the Python course. There's a couple other Python courses on there also. Some of them have to do with like machine learning and stuff, or like data structures and whatnot. But I don't have a link for a specific course to share with you. You'll have to do a little bit of homework. Is your free node course in order? I'm not sure what that means exactly. It's on DevSprout, devsprout.io. It's also on Udemy under the same name, Code with Node, Learn by Doing. But what do you mean by in order? Chandala, good to see you. Catch you next time for sure. And then Freddie, I'm not sure what's going on there. LYK, front end first. So yeah, if you're just doing front end stuff, I would continue to build little projects, but if you're having specific topics that you're struggling with, make sure that you understand the underlying principles first. Like if you're struggling with functions, then do some work with functions and make sure you understand how they work. And that might be just starting with some tutorials and getting a couple different tutorials. Don't spread yourself thin, but get some different perspectives and just make sure that you understand how functions work. And then same thing with arrays. And then you'll want to see other people coding, so go try to find some live coding, or go find some source code on GitHub for projects, or just build your own projects, and eventually over time you'll be forced to do the things you're talking about, like integrating an array with a function, etc. The other thing to do is to contact someone like me for one-on-one tutoring, which I do offer. Feel free to reach out about that, and you just ask me a question, I'll just show you an example and then walk you through any follow-up questions that you have and teach you those concepts. But again, you don't have to pay for that kind of thing. There's all that stuff free on the internet, so with a little bit of Googling you should be able to find some resources for that kind of thing. Is it in order from easy to learn to hard, or what you should learn first to last? Yeah, so everything in that course builds on itself, and I try to explain everything that I cover, so I don't try to assume that you know anything. If I cover a topic like some certain syntax that I know you haven't learned from Colt's course, then I explain this is how this syntax works. But then moving forward after that, I'll assume that you know it because I taught it. So from easy to hard, yes, it gets more complex and advanced as you go on. But I try to hold the user's hand as much as possible. And all my courses that I've ever made, I try to do that as much as possible. I take kind of like a teaching assistant's perspective where I try to put myself in the student's shoes and guess what kind of questions are going to come up in your mind as you're watching this stuff. And then I answer them ahead of time so that you don't have to ask. You already have those answers. So it should be pretty easy for you to follow. Yep, okay, no problem. Good luck. And that's pretty much it. We're at 10:03, so I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks again. Appreciate everyone that showed up. And stay tuned. More live chats and live streams to come. Later.